Ukraine says Russia fired dozens of drones even after President Putin agreed to a partial ceasefire in a phone call with President Trump. President Trump described his nearly 2-hour call with Putin as positive.
And Putin actually said to me, if you're my friend, I'd hate to see you as my enemy. He said that very strongly. But with all of that, I had a very good relationship with Putin.
For all of the other unpopular and failing things about this young presidency, there's one thing about this presidency that is just unprecedented in how radically out of step it is with the American people. There's such a difference between what Trump wants and what the American people want on one particular issue that I actually think it is not sustainable in normal small d democratic terms. Americans were asked, in the war between Russia and Ukraine, with which of those countries do you sympathize more? Ukraine, 61% of Americans said, I sympathize more with Ukraine. Okay, well, that's where your sympathies are. Where do you believe the president's sympathies are? Where do you think Trump's sympathies are? Ukraine, 8%. Russia, 49%.
What's up, everybody? Major Retired Richard Ojeda here, and Trump gets on the phone with Vladimir Putin. 2 hours later, Russia bombs a hospital in Ukraine. Coincidence? Hell no. This isn't just about one phone call. It's about a pattern, one where Putin keeps getting what he wants, and Trump keeps playing the loyal pawn.
Overall, Trump is underwater by minus 13 points on his handling of the war between Russia and Ukraine. A significant majority of the public thinks that he is wrong in his handling of the Russia-Ukraine war. Americans asked specifically, hey, what's your view on Russia? The proportion of Americans who view Russia positively right now is 6%. The American view on this is very clear, and the American people are very aware of how different Trump's view is to their own. All right, and this is it's a statistical oddity. I'm not sure there's ever been anything like this before in presidential politics. But this is part of what the Trump presidency means.
Rachel Maddow just laid it out. Americans overwhelmingly reject Putin, yet Trump can't stop praising him. The numbers don't lie. Trump's allegiance to Russia is wildly out of step with the American people. And that's not just a political problem. It's a national security crisis.
Do you think that Putin is playing President Trump?
Yeah, sure. Putin is trying to deceive everybody because he thinks he's a master of spy games and deceitment. Nobody can trust him.
No United States president has ever been this openly aligned with a foreign adversary. The world is rejecting Putin. America is rejecting Putin. But Trump, he's all in. This is a test, not just for Trump, but of democracy itself. If this kind of betrayal isn't disqualifying, then what the hell is? Trump picks up the phone and has a 2-hour conversation with his best buddy, Vladimir Putin. Within hours, Russia launches a new wave of attacks on Ukraine. A hospital in Sumy is bombed. A railway power station is hit. Russian drones hammer civilian targets. Putin has just promised to negotiate a ceasefire. Ukraine's President Zelensky already agreed to a full stop. If Putin would do the same. But guess what? He didn't. He used the talks as cover to buy time, regroup, and strike again. And what does Donald Trump do? Not a damn thing. Trump isn't just ignoring Russia's attacks. He's working to weaken Americans' alliances. Within hours of the call, Trump's team started pushing for the United States to abandon its military leadership role in NATO. Let that sink in. NATO, the alliance that kept American troops out of another world war, the coalition that stood firm against Russian aggression since Eisenhower. Now, suddenly, Trump wants out. This isn't just reckless. It's strategic surrender. Putin makes a move, Trump follows, every single time. This isn't America first, this is Russia first. And the proof is right in front of us. Trump isn't calling the shots, Putin is. I spent 24 years in the military. I've been outside the wire more times than I can count. I've breathed in dead bodies, I've toxic burn pits, and everything in between. I've eaten MREs on the hood of a Humvee and spent more time in a combat shitter than Pete Hegseth has spent in combat, period. And from where I stand, this is a goddamn betrayal. You don't leave your allies behind. You don't let the enemy regroup. And you sure as hell don't hand over America's military power to a foreign dictator. But that's exactly what Donald Trump is doing.
Trump is doing all this stuff he never campaigned on. He is talking about a U.S. military invasion into Mexico. He is talking about a U.S. annexation of Canada. He is talking about the United States going to war with Denmark, which means NATO, in order to seize Greenland. He has talked about wanting to seize Gaza. He has talked about wanting to seize Panama and has ordered the Pentagon to develop war plans for U.S. troops invading Panama. Where did all this come from? But it's apparently what he is planning on doing now that he is in office, while he is talking frequently and at exorbitant length with his friend Vladimir Putin, who the American people approve of at a rate of 3%.
I fought with Canadians in Iraq. I stood shoulder to shoulder with NATO troops. And now Trump is out here talking about how our border with Canada is an artificial boundary. Sound familiar? That's exactly how Putin talks about Ukraine. And it's not just Canada. Trump is floating military invasions of Mexico. He's talking about annexing Greenland. He's ordering the Pentagon to come up with war plans for invading Panama. You think that's normal? You think that's peace through strength? That's goddamn lunatic talking. Meanwhile, veterans back home are getting screwed. Trump's administration is gutting VA services. Thousands of veterans are losing their benefits, losing health care, losing their damn homes. 80,000 disabled and retired Americans are being forced to physically report to Social Security officers that are already understaffed and shutting down. And where is Donald Trump? On the phone with Vladimir Putin. I've seen what real leadership looks like. It looks like men and women who put their lives on the line for their country, for their allies, for something bigger than themselves. Not some coward who dodged the draft 5 times and now licks Putin's boots. You want to talk about an enemy within? This is it. Trump is sabotaging America, and he's too much of a coward to admit it. Rachel Maddow laid it out. The American people overwhelmingly reject Putin, but Trump, he can't stop praising him. The latest NBC poll shows it plain as day. 61% of Americans sympathize with Ukraine. Only 3% have a positive view of Putin. But when asked who Trump sympathizes with, 8% say Ukraine, 49% say Russia. Let that sink in. No U.S. president ever has been this out of step with the American people. This is beyond politics. This is a national security crisis. And here's the thing. It's not just America rejecting Putin. It's the entire world. Right now, protests are exploding across the globe. In Georgia, more than 100 straight days of protests against pro-Russian government. In Serbia, demonstrators are flooding the streets, pushing back against Putin-backed leadership. And in Hungary, people are rising up against Viktor Orban, Putin's closest ally in Europe. And in Switzerland, in Germany, in cities across Europe, people are rejecting Putin's corruption. They're demanding that their governments sever ties with Russia. The world is rejecting dictatorship. It's rejecting war. It's rejecting Putin. But Trump, he's all in. That's why he isn't just some political debate. This is a test of democracy itself. Pollster Jeff Horowitz said it best. I cannot recall a moment in history when American public opinion and voters' views of a president as to which country they are more aligned with have been more in conflict with each other. And let's be clear. This kind of divide should be unsustainable. In a real democracy, this should be correctable. If our system is still working, a president who openly sides with a foreign adversary should be disqualified from power. But here's the problem. Trump's followers will not admit that they got played. They would rather burn this country to the ground than admit that they were conned by a 2-bit wannabe dictator. They tell themselves this is all part of the plan. They tell themselves Putin is the good guy, NATO is the enemy, and America should be neutral while Russia wipes Ukraine off the map. Neutral? There is no neutral when your president is taking marching orders from a dictator. There is no neutral when Trump is out here talking about cutting off NATO, giving up military command, pulling out of alliances that have kept us safe for 75 years. And while Trump keeps feeding his base lies, the rest of the country is actually waking up. He swore that he would end the war in Ukraine in 24 hours. Now he's admitting that he was just being sarcastic, just like every other lie that he's ever told. This is the test. The American people do not support Putin. The world does not support Putin, but Trump does. The question is, how much damage will he do before enough people wake the hell up? Inquiring minds want to know. And that is an absolute fact. Sappers clear the way, airborne all the way.